when you were young, how did dating go, and what were some stories you would like to share?
When I was young, my parents had a summer home out on the island. We used to go there for the fun summer. Naturally, you met boys at the beach and all this. But you went out. I was like 16, 17, but you were allowed to go out. But we went to the beach if they had a party or a square dance or whatever. But my mother came as a chaperone.
That sounds like my mom.
This is it. And that's what we did. We went there, we went to the movies. But there wasn't anything like sex before marriage. That was, forget it. You just didn't do those kind of things. And we dressed appropriately. I mean, I was young, and I remember I was not allowed to wear dungarees in the city.
Which were?
Which were...
What were dungarees? Or whatever.
Jeans. Jeans. I wasn't allowed to wear jeans, and we didn't even ride a bike here in the city. We had to wait till we get to the country to do that. My father didn't allow us to wear the jeans.
And we did have curfews. Our curfews were very strict. If you were told that you had to be home by 11 o'clock, you made sure that you got home by 11 o'clock. Otherwise, you'd be restricted in watching TV. You'd be restricted in going out. You were grounded, let's say, for about another month. So they were very, very strict in those days.
Very strict.
Sometimes it was good, and sometimes it was not. Overall, I think it was good. We learned more than we lost.
Now, Grandpa, as a man, it's usually back then to go ask a woman for like a woman's hand in marriage. So how did that work back then? How did your dating differ from Grandma's?
I would say it was basically the same, only because of our upbringing. You know, you take a lot from your parents. I can honestly say that in all the years that we've been married and all the years that we had our parents alive, I never had a problem with Camille's mother and father. And I don't think she had a problem with Mom. We accepted each other. We tolerated each other if necessary, but mainly we loved each other, which is, and love conquers all. So I would call upon Camille. We would go out. And by the way, we would try to go out in groups. And as a result, and you'll appreciate this, Gina, you may or may not know, and I think you do know this, because the family was so large, we went out in groups of 4 girls, 3 of her sisters and Camille as well. So we became not only family members, but friends as well. So we would go out, so there would be 8 of us going out, essentially. And as it turned out, the fearsome 4, we got married all the same year. So we had to pick a date, a calendar date, and we all celebrated our 50th anniversary 6 years ago. And they were saying, well, what are we going to do to have a 50th anniversary? We said, well, since we all come from the same family, why don't we do this? The guests would all come, the same guests would come to each one of our parties. Why don't we have one joint party? So sure enough, 6 years ago, we all celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary. And believe this or not, insofar as our family is concerned, we could not invite guests that were not family members because the family is so big. So the date of our 50th anniversary, the only person who was a non-family member was the bishop, who happened to be a personal friend of all of us. He married our children. He married Gina's mother and father, and the rest of the siblings in that particular group, the first family 4. But what actually happened here is that when the family members, we go back to being a small world now, because transportation allowed all of the siblings to come in and meet each other. Some of them have never even met each other. The grandchildren and the great-grandchildren never met each other. And they would ask, Mom, Dad, who is that? Which cousin is that? And which cousin is that? So that's exactly what happened insofar as our family. And by the way, we ended up having well over 100 people, just immediate family members. So that can tell you how the family has grown.
How do you feel about the safety in America today? Like walking down the street by yourself, and how has it changed from when you were young?
Unfortunately, we were so much safer when we were young. You would walk the streets at all hours of the night. You wouldn't lock the doors. You'd sit out on the porch, you'd sit out on your steps, not fearing that someone would be trying to break into your home. You knew all your neighbors. With the migration today, there are days that you look to your left and look to your right, and you have new neighbors, and there are times that you may not even speak to them. We were all family oriented in those days. I look back to those days and I miss those days. Camille?
There was never a worry of the young girl traveling into the city. There was not any worry.
Because you did that on a daily basis, and so did your sisters. And now, when
Exactly.
Christina goes into the city, it's a completely different
Yes.
story, correct?
I used to come home from the city after a play at night. We'd go once a month, the girls and I that I worked with, and we'd go to the theater. We'd have dinner and go to the theater. And I thought nothing of getting on the train coming from the city and into Queens at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. You were not afraid. That isn't the way it was. No one ever bothered you. You just mind your own business. They mind their own business. You took your train, you took your bus, you waited for your bus, and nothing.
Now, in order to compensate for the danger that we've just discussed, it's a necessity at a young age, it's particularly a female, that she has a cell phone with her. So the parents can always keep in contact, or she can keep in contact with the parents. Most important. It's like almost having an alarm in your home at night.
So, how do you feel about the 2013 and how we are living? Did you ever think that we would be the way that we are?
Well, so much progress has been made since the end of World War II in the mid-40s. And war, unfortunately, brings progress. And the evolution of electronics, the automobile age, the electronic age. We were lucky. Our first TV came out in the mid-40s, 47, in that range there. And today, everyone's got at least 3 or 4 TV sets in their homes. It's accepted. We become spoiled to a point. As long as we don't abuse it, everything is fine. But unfortunately, people do abuse it. And I repeat, we are spoiled. And I think we appreciated it more because we worked. You didn't have credit cards in those days. Today, people feel that they can spend, whether they have the money or not. They use their credit cards.
Didn't you initiate a credit card, Grandpa, at the bank you worked at?
Yes, I did.
The irony behind that.
It certainly is true. Yeah, it was MasterCard. I was one of 8 supervisors who originated it with our bank, and we've come a long way. But as long as you don't abuse it, I call it a privilege because, let's face it, you've got to pay back your debt. And in order to do so, if you continue with the debt, you're never going to be paying it back because the interest rates, banks are there to make money. And you pay, but you pay, and many people feel that as long as they can pay it, they don't care what they pay in interest, and that's not good.
And what about technology, Grandma? Did you ever think we would have come this far?
No. I never thought we'd come this far. When I first worked, we had just a manual typewriter. And then as I worked and the years went, we had the electric typewriter. Then we had the one that you could make the errors. It's correct. They do the corrections. Then I got into then once we started with the computers, then whoever worked, we had the teachers and the supervisors who would teach everyone. And all the teachers had to go in for all the technology all over again. The thing that I do think is wonderful is that these little children know how to handle these computers. The tablets, the computers, the phones. I mean, they could teach Grandma all this, which is wonderful. And that, so long as they don't abuse it, that's all.